if you dare. Thorpe Park Resort.
If Fright Nights isn't happening, then Ghost Train is the main scare attraction at Thorpe Park. A lot of people have came off this ride fairly underwhelmed and confused by the story because the ride tends to leave out quite a lot of details, leaving guests to not understand what really happened. This is quite unfortunate because the story for this ride is absolutely brilliant. So basically, I'm making this to just explain the story fully so that you can genuinely understand the ride. Now, let's rewind just over 100 years to start off the story. Groups of monks and nuns all came together to create a secret society which many people didn't know about called the Believers. The Believers were fairly rich people and were also quite dangerous. The Believers would do what they want to get their way. What did they want? To live forever. They tried whatever they wanted to try and figure out ways to live forever. And this continued until they made a discovery which led them to one day take the train from Thorpe Junction to Chapel Station. So they boarded the last train of the day at Thorpe Junction, with their destination being Chapel Station. Once they arrived at Chapel Station, they got off and the train continued its journey where it terminates at Inferno Central. The leader of the Believers, Lord Devlin, leads them towards the crypt of St. Charles Chapel and they break into it. Once they entered the crypt, they chanted spells along with Credo, which meant I believe, but they chanted the wrong spell and they didn't summon any spirits, but instead they summoned Death, womp womp. Rather than just saying, nah, it's alright, Death decides to violently rip their souls from their bodies for doing this. Maybe Lord Devlin should have been a little bit more organised. So basically, the Believers are dead. Their souls were ripped out by the Angel of Death. It looks suspiciously a lot like that one scene in the Thorpe Park Fright Nights deadbeat name reveal trailer thingy. This wasn't something that went unknown, as immediately as it was found out, the station was shut, and ever since it has never opened again. Although I don't know this for a fact, the chances are that there were probably some other incidences which caused the place to stay shut permanently. Things like that aren't mentioned, but it only makes sense as it still hasn't opened ever since. The locals also refused to ever take the last train. The station master wasn't happy about this, almost too unhappy about this, and he claims that they're too superstitious, which is another reason why I would probably say that there's more to it than just that story, because why would the locals be so scared to take the last train? But of course, that one story is the reason why Chapel Station never opens and never will open again, and never plans to open. Over 100 years after the incident, then the ride finally takes place. You and other passengers have turned up to Thorpe Junction to take the last train, most likely out of curiosity. The staff working there clearly don't seem very comfortable about this. However, the station master seems quite excited. The passengers for the last train are then called inside into the waiting room. Staff member leaves and then you are greeted by the station master himself after he comes out of nowhere. Like literally comes out of nowhere. If you've been on the ride, you know. He reveals that his real name is Angelus Mortis. He then explains the basics of the story about how the Believers broke into the crypt and they died. He specifically tells you that they summoned death and that they died beautifully. He then says that you can either now leave or take the last train. That then follows by all of the windows slamming shut, so there is quite literally no possible exit. The staff member then comes back and leads everyone through the lost property. Inside here, there is a TV, multiple TVs I'm pretty sure, playing news reports and documentaries and etc., and they all seem to be related to the incident of the Believers. What a good coincidence, eh? You're then taken into the gantry where the last train awaits. You board the train where you meet the two station staff members, Trippis and Fogs. It's all pretty normal except for the fact that they don't look too well and the entire train is disgusting. Trippis, though, seems to be a bit under the weather, let's say. They seem to be obsessing over the story of the Believers, and Fogs is a little bit confused and concerned, let's say. What Fogs hasn't realised yet is that Trippis is very much currently possessed. Trippis then somehow managed to predict, sort of, except not really, that the train would suddenly stop, and it did. And where did it stop? Chapel Station. And suddenly, bam, both of them are possessed, and then they start shouting for you to get off the train and the doors open. You're then led into the crypt where the Believers also went when they stopped at Chapel Station, but suspiciously this time, the doors are already unlocked. You walk around walls of skeletons, skulls, and etc. until you make it to the main part. Trippis is stood right at the front next to a tomb. Again, Trippis, just like everyone else did, explains the whole story of the believers. Yeah, you think we get it at this point. But either way, it's still pretty cool. Angelus Mortis then possesses Trippis after his little explanation, and then he completely loses himself. He basically then just lets us all know that death is not the end, but the beginning of your eternal torment. He even opens up the tombstone, starts controlling the statue, which then starts to turn around and other things. The floor shakes, and it's basically total chaos. Then everything goes black, and suddenly Death himself flies over everyone, then possessing Fogs, who is a lot stronger than Trippis, clearly, because he manages to fight it off. Then Lord Devlin himself comes out, possessed by Death. Basically just... he doesn't really have a purpose, he's just kind of walking about. Despite the fact it was over 100 years ago, he pretty much is fine. He's just walking around with a hood over his head. Maybe he's a skeleton, who knows. You're rushed back onto a train where you can finally get the hell out of there. You get back on the train, and both Trippis and Fogs are pretty much just bewildered, slightly traumatized. They don't really know what to do. Then, of course, it's not the end, is it? The lights go off, they get possessed again, and then basically some nuns come out after it all goes dark, and many people are confused by this, but those are the actual nuns. Just like Lord Devlin, those are the nuns that attempted to live forever but accidentally summoned death. That is why there are nuns. At this point, it is revealed that Angelus Mortis is actually Death himself, and he's very evil. Angelus Mortis, of course, being the station master that you met at the beginning. Everything then goes back to normal after all of the runes on the walls, all the weird gases going off, and the nuns disappear, and it's almost as if none of that actually happened. It is then time to all change as the train is terminating at the station that you just stopped at. You enter a room that looks a lot like a gift shop with what also looks like on-ride photos. It all looks like some sort of big stupid prank which has just traumatized you for life. But as everyone looks around for their photos, you start to realize that nobody's actually there. There's like a shop staff member there who doesn't really do much. He's just stood around. He's useless. The passengers are then told that they can't quite leave yet because there is a spillage on the exit stairs, so they'll have to wait in there for just a little bit longer. And of course, surprise, surprise, the lights go off again. Lord Devlin comes out one more time to scare you, and then all of the screens which displayed the on-ride photos change, and Angelus Mortis is there to give you one last message. This is not photo redemption, this is soul redemption. And then your souls are redeemed and you died, just like those believers did back then. That's pretty much the whole story, and a lot of it isn't clear because they don't make it very clear on the ride, unfortunately. I mean, I would say that that's about Alton Tower's story level. It's a very good story, and I don't really know where they came up with it, but it's a very good idea. I hope that this opens people's eyes to Ghost Train more as well, as I genuinely think it's criminally underrated. I absolutely love it. I think that the actors are brilliant, and it's a brilliant story. When you know it properly, you really get to appreciate it more.
This is not photo redemption. This is soul redemption.